The Medici went from humble bankers to one of the most powerful families in the world. It was their gold that financed some of the most beautiful works of the Renaissance, and the influence of their legacy still stretches well into our modern world. But how did it happen? I'm the Enlightened Edelweiss, and this is the second of a series of videos focusing on the history of this fascinating family. The Medici are said to be descended from an 8th century knight named Averardo, who served under Charlemagne during his campaign in Lombardy. According to the Medici family legend, while traveling near Florence, Averardo heard of a monster terrorizing the locals. He then found the monster and fought him. During the battle, the monster's mace dented his shield in several places. After he slayed the monster, Charlemagne rewarded him by letting him use the dented shield as his personal arms. This explains the Medici family arms with several red balls on a gold background. The family legend, however, is naturally not very credible in terms of actual historical fact. Some have suggested that the balls on the Medici arms represent pills, seeing as the word Medici in Italian means doctors. This, however, is also unlikely, since the use of pills for medical use did not become common until after the appearance of the Medici arms. A more likely origin of the arms is that the balls depict coins, which were the symbol of pawnbrokers. This is likely, seeing as the Medici were originally money changers. According to family legend, the knight Averardo settled down in the valley by the river Siev, 25 miles to the northeast of Florence. It was here that the Medici family came from, in the small village of Cafaggiolo. At some point before the turn of the 13th century, the family seems to have moved to Florence. Upon their arrival, the Medici settled near the church of San Lorenzo. Thereby, San Lorenzo became the patron saint of the Medici family. The first Medici to be mentioned in the Florentine records is Chiarsino in 1201. Information about the family at this point is scarce. We know that it was around this time that they first became involved in banking by becoming money changers, and were able to acquire a decent amount of wealth. By the end of the 13th century, they were quite a well-known family. The first Medici to become Gonfaloniere was Ardingo de' Medici, who was elected in 1296. Ardingo's brother, Giucio, was also elected Gonfaloniere 3 years later. Interestingly, Giucio was buried in a 4th century sarcophagus outside the church of San Giovanni Battista. Averardo de' Medici also became Gonfaloniere in the year 1314. However, after this, the family seems to have suffered a decline in wealth. There was a resurgence for the family with the election of Salvestro de' Medici to the position of Gonfaloniere in the year 1370, and again in 1378. 1378 marked the year of the Chiompi Revolt, which saw the so-called Popolo Minuto, which consisted of skilled workers, artisans, and craftsmen, rise up against the system to demand representation in the government. Salvestro was known to be sympathetic to their cause, and this did aid him when the revolt seemed to be successful. However, once it was crushed, Salvestro was finished. Following the revolt, the Medici gained a reputation as being sympathetic to the people, and thereby gained the suspicion of many powerful families in Florence. Following the death of Salvestro in 1388, the family business was passed on to Vieri de' Medici, who greatly expanded it, opening exchange offices all across Italy and becoming highly successful. This, however, is not the famous Medici Bank that we think of today. That bank was founded by a distant cousin of Vieri, by the name of Giovanni de' Medici, who at the time was an apprentice at Vieri's bank, along with his brother Francesco. He later rose to be junior partner and manager of the Roman branch of the bank. For a time, historians were quite baffled as to the origins of the Medici Bank, seeing as Giovanni's immediate family weren't very well off. It is, however, now clear that at some point around 1391 or 1392, the bank was divided into 3 independent businesses. Giovanni took over one of the three firms in the form of the Roman branch, of which he was manager. Another portion was taken over by Giovanni's brother, Francesco, in the name of his son, Averardo. While these banks were technically separate entities, they worked closely together until 1397, when Giovanni shifted his bank from Rome to Florence, thereby becoming fully independent from his brother and nephew. It was this new bank that would rise to hitherto unparalleled levels of success and cement the Medici name in history.